All right, here's the backstory. I think it was December 14th, 2012. PJ Walsh was on the Morning Blend on this show.
But neither of us were here, which rarely happens.
Well, that's the only time it's happened, I think, isn't
right,
it?
we're like, how did... Point is, we're glad not to miss out this time around.
Yes, PJ Walsh, good to have you back.
Thank you.
We weren't here the
See
first
you.
time. Yeah, good to see you.
He's like, who are these two? Are they new?
No, we've been here a long time. But I heard a story about you. I've heard you've got a pretty eclectic past. You took kind of a different path to get into comedy, right?
It depends on which story.
There's a few of them.
A few of them, yeah. Well, I was in the Navy for 6 years, and then first 3 years I was with the Marines, and went to the first Gulf on a ship, USS Nashville with them, and then in the last 2 years I worked in the White House, where I was the primary dental technician for the first and second families, which is an uppity way of saying I took care of the president's teeth.
You worked in the White House full time? You stayed there full time?
There's a dental clinic in the basement of the White House, and that's where I worked, and I also took care of Camp David. I took care of all the troops at Camp David, and my office was in Bethesda, Maryland.
Oh, wow.
So it was a great job. I went to work in a suit. Like, no one knew that I worked there, and so I was in charge of during the Clinton administration, first and second family.
So,
which everyone stands back. As soon as I hear that, they're like, okay.
No, I'm stepping in. I'm stepping in. I want to know, but you probably can't talk about it. Did you have to sign some?
Is it
I
classified?
just told the world there's a dental clinic in the basement of the White House.
Can you tell any stories about those times?
I tell stories all the time. Yeah, I did. It was one of those. It was an interesting time period because the White House, when I first got there, it seemed like it was like a college interns and beautiful women and young people, and it was just amazing. And
it's hopping in this.
It was hopping in this, and then Oklahoma City happened, and they closed down Pennsylvania Avenue, and you really had to only get in there what they call a Yankee white clearance, and it just that's what it did. I felt the world change at that moment, you know, like a big shift, and like America's innocence. I felt like kind of started.
Well, the anniversary is happening now, and so there's a lot of reflection, and you see
Yeah.
the video, you're reminded of it.
It
now.
was a big moment for me, but what I used to do is it was very defining because both my parents immigrated here from Ireland. I was born to two Irish parents, which is tough. I had to be a designated driver to my own birth, and but when I got here, my parents dreamed of America. They were like immigrants. So when I used to stand outside the White House and watch people take pictures, like schools and this in front of the White House, and I'd look at it and I'd be like, I can walk right in there. Yeah. And when I was in high school, if you showed me a picture of the moon and a picture of the White House, they were the same exact distance away from me. I wasn't getting to either of these.
Wow.
And here I am just walking in, providing health care. The youngest person to provide health care for the President of the United States.
No kidding. Did you get your parents into the White House?
I brought my parents into the White House a few times. I brought my mom. I put her in a chair, and this is my mom's beautiful. I love her to death. Beautiful woman from a little farm in Ireland. She came here. She's in the chair. My three sisters were around us, and my mom's looking around. Tears in her eyes. And she's like, "PJ, you work on the President of the United. My son works on the President of the United States." And then she looks at my sisters and she goes, "Girls, your brother's winning."
He's winning. Yeah. He's beating you.
Yeah. And then they had kids, and I was knocked off the pedestal real fast.
Nice.
So when did you get into comedy? How did you go from the White House, working in the dental clinic in the basement of the White House, into comedy?
When I was in Bethesda, there was a school. It was a dental school, and we'd have a lot of time off in the summers. And my buddies signed me up. We went to a Hooters, and we had some beers.
Of course,
and my Hooters plug. And we had some beers, and my friends signed me up for an open mic. And they're like, "You got to do this." And I was like, "I don't know." And then the Hooters waitress came by, and they were like, "Hey, he's going to do comedy." And she's like, "Oh, I'll come by." I'm like, "I'll totally be there." And so I went and I went up, and she didn't show up, but I went up on stage, and I looked at the mic, and it was just, it was when you could smoke, and I also has a microphone and lights, and I saw the smoke going behind it, and I just tilted my head, and I was like, I love this. Like, I knew right away. I knew right away, and I never looked back.
Well, you went through an intensive training program for it, but you took it quite seriously as a career, that it wasn't just going to be a hobby.
I did. I applied everything that was in the military. I took everything and applied it to becoming a comedian. And
what about Larry the Cable Guy? I don't want to run out of time without discussing being on tour with him.
Being on tour with Larry the Cable Guy. And
did you learn anything good?
Oh, I mean, I would be with him when he played to 15,000 people. I really learned to be comfortable. I watched Larry the Cable Guy go through this phase of like where he blew up, and it was like, oh, why am I the biggest?
Huge,
why am I the
yeah.
And then he just owned it, and he's just great with his fans. So that was the biggest thing. I
Of course, he's got his style. He's got the Larry the Cable thing, but you have a unique style too.
I have a crazy life, and I share it. Like you get PJ Walsh. Larry's a character, and he's a great character, and it makes me laugh. But I have this, like, my life is so crazy. I mean, I've worked in a way. I took care of the president's teeth. How do you not tell people about that?
Well, and it's great to have PJ back in Omaha. It's been a few years since we could say that. So fans, look alive, and we know a lot of military. We've got, of course, Offit here. A lot of folks in the area who are going to be anxious to see you, and you've got 5 shows to do it. Call to get tickets, 493-8036. You can also visit funnyboneomaha.com to book your seats. So,
PJ,
yeah.
Good
enjoy
to
the
meet you.
weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, and happy Mother's Day to that mama of yours.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.